And we are live. I'm super excited to have my next guest on. She's doing so many things I can't keep up. She actually has a really awesome mission statement, taking the status quo and transforming it to a more equitable, feminist, corporately sound, and ecological sustainable environment. I'm really happy to have Shelley on the podcast. Welcome, Shelley.
Hey, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Yeah, let's dive right into it. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, I'm based here in Alberta, in Calgary, most of the time. That's where my kids, my grandkids are, and my mom and dad. So Calgary's still kind of home for me. And I kind of spend my time in a few areas. I am an entrepreneur a few times over, and I can't seem to shake that. And then I've had the fortunate opportunity to invest back in the community that really supported me. So I kind of spend my time between those two things, as being an entrepreneur myself, and then investing in other entrepreneurs. And then I love nature. So as much as I can, I get out to nature. So
I love to hear that. Yeah, I saw that you're a very avid traveler, so we could definitely get into that later in the
yeah, I
podcast.
was a very avid traveler, and
Then
then
this whole
that
COVID
stopped.
thing happens.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. You mentioned that you just an entrepreneur that you can't seem to shake. You just have that entrepreneurial spirit. One thing I always love to ask guests that come on the podcast is, have you always been an entrepreneur your whole life? Like, tell me how your childhood was growing up. Were you always the kind of kid selling lemonade or popsicles and all that stuff? Or like, how
No,
have
I
you?
wasn't. I don't think I was, but I definitely grew up in a house. My dad liked to work. He was a hard worker. So I think I picked up his work ethic. Absolutely. But my parents were not entrepreneurial at all. But I think I always had a little bit of a streak in me that I knew I wasn't going to do what I was expected to do. So I always kind of took a different path. I was always maybe, the odd one doing, something different, not really trying to kind of, fit in. Most of the time I didn't fit in. So I think I was always, yeah. So I don't think I thought of myself as an entrepreneur, but I think if I kind of look back on it, I think I had some of the characteristics that work well for being an entrepreneur, which is, kind of finding your own way and doing your own thing. So
Absolutely. I'd love to jump in some of the businesses you've built so far. If you could walk us through maybe some of the things you've done, the projects you've been a part of, the companies you've built, that'd be awesome.
yeah. Well, I had an opportunity to kind of grow up inside of a energy technology company in the 90s. And so that's where I really kind of learned what it took to build something. I was not the founder. I was not the entrepreneur. I was just a very invested employee in the company. And so I would say that's where I kind of like got the bug, even though I wasn't the founder or the entrepreneur in that company. And then once that company sold, then my husband, my brother, and we started a company with a kind of a bigger set of other founders and entrepreneurs. We created, it was kind of, think about 1999, 2000. There was a lot of companies that were being created that weren't necessarily successful companies. But we created a digital agency. And, again, because it was, the 2000s, I think there was lots of hype about what we were doing. We were very confident of what we were doing, but it was a services company. And us as a team, I don't think we were necessarily satisfied with being a services company. So we had an opportunity to take that company and do a transaction that allowed us to become an IP company or an intellectual property company. So we vended in our company into a company called Solium, which was based in Calgary. It was acquired by Morgan Stanley in 2019. So it was one of those overnight success stories that's not an overnight success story, that takes lots of sweat to create. But we did that transaction, and then my husband stayed in that company longer term. I did not. And then I just started to do more things. So I created another agency, and it was a really cool agency. We were a collection of women, and we would work with startup entrepreneurs in the Calgary technology community. But what we would do is we would sometimes forego cash for equity in these companies, which turned out to be pretty cool in a couple of cases. So we had the opportunity to turn that equity stake in these companies for some value, and again, just continued that investing process. So, and then just kind of kept going. So it could have been a services company or a tech company. I had the opportunity to move to London for 6 years, which was really cool. I loved that. I had the opportunity to work with companies all over Europe and the UK. Again, both in a tech company as well as a services company. I founded a company over there while I was there. And yeah, so I just kind of kept doing that over and over again. I would find a different thing that I was really interested in. But I would say up into the 51, I would say largely my interest was, I loved working with big brands and helping them become innovators and for them to use community and open innovation to do really cool things. So I would say that that was kind of the majority of my career. So I had the opportunity to work with companies like Lego and IKEA and Unilever and Nike and Procter and Gamble, and these big brands that were really trying to figure out how to harness their customers for value beyond as a customer. So how could they generate ideas and insights and do innovation and co-creation? But then when I moved back to Canada in 2018, I can't remember now. Then that's where my mind started rolling on the 51. And so longtime friend of mine, Alice Reimer, and I, we always dreamed about a company like the 51. As women investors and entrepreneurs, we were always like, where are all the women? There are none. And so the 51 was really designed to captivate women, to get them to participate in the innovation ecosystem as entrepreneurs and investors. So we've been on that journey since 2019.
Awesome. Yeah. One common theme I always find, or at least one common theme I notice about your story, is that you have this nature of making positive impact in the community. And I really love that. I love other entrepreneurs doing really great things in the community, really making that positive impact. And I also read that, I did some stalking. I also read that you have 4 driving forces: finance, feminism, investment, activism, participation in community, fashion, and sustainability. I'd love to dig a little bit deeper into that and what that means to you.
Yeah. Well, my path as a young person, when I was 18, I actually wanted to move to Amsterdam and become a fashion designer. That was my dream. I always wanted to do fashion. I didn't. I did a very different path based on some encouragement from my family. So fashion was always in my kind of mind. I love fashion. I was always a consumer of fashion. And then, having the opportunity to live in Europe, I was just, again, even more inspired by what the Europeans were creating from a fashion standpoint. But at the heart of it, I knew that, my consumption wasn't sustainable. None of our consumption really is. So I thought, if I was ever to go into fashion, I needed to have kind of a vein of sustainability. And so that was really important. And so been collaborating with other kind of partners on that fashion journey, looking at sustainable fabrics or textiles, where's the clothes being made? How can we drive transparency on that process? And then I've had the opportunity to build all of it on Shopify, which I think is super cool because it's a Canadian company. And I just think, how cool is that I can set up a store online? And so, on the fashion side, it's been I would say it's been relatively conservative in the way that, they're really simple garments anybody can wear, nothing really flashy or anything. So it's been a lot of fun to build that company. And then on the innovation side, like I said earlier, really love the opportunity to build a company or a brand using community. I think community is the future of successful companies and organizations. If you can kind of rally your stakeholders to your mission and to your vision, there's so much more that you can create. Kind of like together is better. So yeah, that would be kind of a couple of points there. And yes, I'm an activist and a feminist, but hopefully I'm not, too woke. I just really believe it's a huge opportunity. If women can, better participate in the economy, there's just so much upside. So I think it's a bit economic and it's a bit social. And I think, combined, it's going to be a really powerful engine for growth.
I love that. I really love that. But yeah, let's dive into the 51. You mentioned it's a organization helping future fit women-led organizations. I'm sure you interact with a bunch of women entrepreneurs. Maybe what would be a key piece of advice that you've learned throughout your journey that you would give to maybe some of the women entrepreneur listeners listening to our interview right now?
Yeah, that's a big question because there's so much advice. And it's not that, I would be wise or anything, but it's more just like, what are all those lessons learned, right? But I think probably the biggest piece of advice I would offer is don't always be so worried about what people think of you and what you're doing. Really try to find your North Star, like your direction, and stick with it and surround yourself with people that can help you make that happen. But I think, for so many of us, and I think entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter, if I'm a woman or not. I think there's a bit of there's fear, there's trepidation, there's the unknown. I think if you put yourself out there, you're going to be, you're going to be a target for advice, for feedback, for thoughts around, well, you'll never be able to do that. And so I think just really find your fortitude before you do it, and really surround yourself with an amazing community that can be champions for you. So yeah.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, maybe just me just being very creative minded, but is there any symbolic meaning behind the 51 or the name?
Yeah,
I'd love
exactly. Yeah, the 51 means that women are 51% of the population. And so that's kind of like globally, women make up 51% of the population. And, at the beginning of the 51, we would communicate that and people would be like, what? I didn't know that. And so we purposely took that name because we wanted women to be looked at not as this minority group, right? This small, insignificant, segment of the population that was like, oh, there's those women over there doing their thing and that's not really important. We really wanted to say, look, if we fully participate in creating social impact or economic value, like there's 50% of the population can contribute, have the opportunity to contribute. So we really wanted to be seen as a material force in that. So yeah, that's where the name came from.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I always love symbolic meanings behind names. And yeah, I really love that 51. I actually never knew that either. So that's good
I
to
know,
know.
right? I know, exactly. And it was like, we were like Googling it. We're like, really, are we? And it's like, yeah, on a global basis, we're 51% of the population. So
That's awesome. One thing you mentioned also about the organization is that you guys invest in future fit organizations. Maybe you could dive into some industries or examples of innovative companies that you've engaged with at the 51. I'd love to get your insight there.
Yeah. when we first launched the 51, we just kind of like worked as a community, and we would do different types of investing, and sometimes we would do it together. It was really organic and grassroots. And then we raised our first fund, Fund One. Fund One is set up to be a sector agnostic fund. So we're not investing in a specific sector with that fund, but we're definitely watching where women are innovating, and kind of following their lead. And so some examples would be fintech, so financial technology. We have invested in a marketplace company, and we're actually investing in another marketplace company here very shortly. We'll be announcing that. So again, it's this idea that, you know, can you build a community that can be leveraged for commercialization, both for the community itself and for those that they're providing value to, the customers. You know, we've invested in some health tech, and we think that's a really interesting area for women. You know, I don't know if some of your readers or your viewers have heard of a book called Invisible Women. And it's a book that really talks about how largely, you know, the world hasn't been designed by women for women. And so when we look at healthcare, for example, and we look at our participation in healthcare, you know, we're largely, you know, participating in an ecosystem or a framework that wasn't designed for us. You know, simple things like, you know, we weren't allowed to participate in clinical trials, I don't think, until the 90s. So, you know, drugs were going through clinical trials, they were going to market, but women were not allowed to participate. And that's because our bodies were too complicated. And so, you know, we look at healthcare being, you know, a really amazing sector, because if we could, you know, see what women would innovate for themselves and for their own health, what would be possible. So we've invested in that. We've invested in other product companies. So they could be considered e-commerce or direct-to-consumer companies. So again, you know, women designing products that they want, but they can't find. And lo and behold, you know, many other women want those products too. So Fund One has been really agnostic. One of the sectors that we've become really excited about is food and ag tech. So food technology and agriculture technology. And so we announced that we're raising a food and ag tech fund. We announced that last year. And so we're raising that fund right now. And again, you know, what's possible if you look at innovation in that sector, and, you know, the innovation is so needed, right? If we're supposed to be, you know, a country or a globe that's supposed to feed everyone that's on the planet, we really need to produce our food more efficiently in a more sustainable fashion. And so food and ag tech is a sector that we're really excited about.
Yeah, it sounds like there's many industries that are on the rise, ready for innovation, and I love that it's women leading the force. At least the organization you're a part of is shepherding that. So I love to see diverse people taking control of the future. So that's really awesome to hear. Another question I did want to ask you, though, is about entrepreneurship in general. We know that it's not always roses and sunshine all the time. There's always going to be some challenges, some resilience needed, definitely. So is there any experiences in your journey that's really top of mind, challenge, barrier, failure that's really brought you to your success?
Yeah, I was thinking about that question earlier. Yeah, lessons learned. I would say I've really been an entrepreneur that's always been focused on what's possible. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine if we could do this? What could happen if this could be possible? So I've always been very mission oriented or vision oriented. I think, you know, the biggest lesson I've learned over the years of being an entrepreneur is, how does that translate into a sustainable or a high growth business model? And so, you know, what are the levers of value that your company has, and how might it commercialize itself in the marketplace? So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think I can be so captivated by what's possible, and I can see it and I can feel it, and I'm like, it will happen. This, a company like this will exist at some point in the future. We have an opportunity to do it, whoever that team is. But I think really nailing the business model is super, super important. And so again, what are the levers for that business model? What will the market pay for your product or your service? How, is that business model, high growth, venture scale business model, or is it something that would be, maybe more not high growth, right? But it could be an awesome business. I mean, every business doesn't have to be a venture-backed business. In fact, very few companies are venture-backed. So I would say, I would say that would be the biggest piece of advice, is really making sure that your vision and your mission that you can see, and it's so clear for you as an entrepreneur, and you are so determined that it must exist and that you can do it and that you could win, that you really then do the work to go, okay, well, what is the business model behind all of this? And really make sure that it's a business model that, can thrive for the long term. So pricing, product marketing, who's your customer? What will they pay for it? How scalable is it? How can you distribute it? Is there intellectual property in that company which can make it more valuable? So yeah, that's probably my biggest lesson, because I'm one to go, like, let's go do that. That would be amazing. That would be an amazing company. So I can get a bit distracted, and that hard work is really necessary if you're going to be successful. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely, as an entrepreneur, it's hard not to have that shiny object syndrome. It's like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, that sounds cool. Oh, how about that?
I
So
know. Another idea, right? So yeah.
always no shortage of ideas.
Exactly.
So yeah, you mentioned all these golden nuggets. I'm really happy that you shared that with the listeners, because I'm sure there's some that are looking to start their first business or within their first business right now. Obviously, you've probably had some resources along the way to get all this expertise. Has there been any resource or even mentor that's helped you get to this point today?
I think it's been so many people along the way. And I think, it's a bit of the curse of being an entrepreneur. Like you're saying, there's so many ideas, right? So you need to get those ideas validated. And those ideas might be very different in nature. So then you need to seek out very different advice from different people about those ideas and the possibility. So, and I'm older, right? So I'll be 55 this year. And so if you think about the number of ideas or businesses that I've been involved with, the number of people that I've had the opportunity to kind of collaborate with and get their advice from has been quite a few. Not to mention, living in another part of the world, right? You build a completely different community and network over there, right? And you get so much advice from customers too, and the market. So, I think there's some people in my pocket that I always call for sure. My friend Alice Reimer, she's definitely one of them. She kind of brings me down to earth, and she's like, Shell, think about this. She's got really good temperament. I have another, I would say, mentor, Mark Miller. He runs a company called Valeris, and he's a COO of Constellation Software in Canada. And again, another sage individual, right? I can get so excited talking with Mark, and he just kind of slows me down and takes me through the process. And what is it going to take, and have you thought it all the way through? So those are just a couple of people that I would mention for sure.
It's really awesome you mentioned that, just because there's one quote that always sticks in my head. It's that you're some of the five closest people in your life or in your circle. So it's really about having that, surrounding yourself with people that you can really lean on and get advice from, and just share your ideas with. So it sounds like you have that as well. So
exactly. And I have to mention my husband too, Brian. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know how he's had the patience and fortitude to see me go through my entrepreneurial journey because I have so many ideas all the time. But he's been a rock. And now I've got 2 adult sons, right? 32 and 25. And collectively as a family, we're doing investing together, and we don't always agree, and I learned so much from them too. So who your kind of your network and your community changes over time. But you're right, it's probably a very small circle that it's the first call or it's the first text to chat.
Absolutely. What would you say is Shelley's superpower, unique skill? You're just doing so many great things. You're pushing a vision forward for the future. The future is female. I really love that. But what's Shelley's specific, unique superpower that's made you so successful?
Yeah, and that's an awkward question because it's hard, right? To kind of like, but I think, what would other people say? I think they would say, I have a tremendous amount of vision. Like like I said before, I can see that things will happen, and I can see what's possible. And I get very excited about that very early stage and trying to synthesize it. Ideas, I love idea generation. I love kind of like putting stuff on that idea to make it even a stronger idea. But I love taking stuff to market. Like I love building a brand, and I love marketing, and I love making something that's super attractive to whoever you're trying to activate. So it's kind of like that. I think that stuff I'm really, really good at. But I'm also like, I can get super practical and I can get shit done too. So I'm kind of, maybe it's the ADHD in me or something, but I can kind of bounce back and forth. But yeah.
I love that. Just get shit done, have vision, get it done. I love that. What's maybe one common myth within, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be VC land. Where's maybe one common myth about your industry that you wish would be debunked?
Yeah, I think I touched on it before. This whole idea that of like chasing money for your company, and that's kind of the be all end all, and nothing's better than bringing in venture capital into your company. I think there's very few companies that will raise venture capital, and then there's then the actual success rate of venture backed businesses. I don't know what the success rate is, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. And so I think there's the glorification of being an entrepreneur and doing all of that stuff. And of course we read about all of the, the really good stories, and we read about, some not great stories too. But I think there's like this glorification of entrepreneurship and raising venture capital. And I think, I don't know if that is for everyone, and I don't think it should be. And I think there's some fantastic companies that have never raised venture capital, and they are awesome companies and awesome teams, and they have great customers. And so I think that would be the one thing about our industry that I just go, it's okay if you're not going to be invested by venture capital. That shouldn't be the be all end all. And so it's really held up to be something quite prestigious. And I just think, there's so many different ways to build a company. So that would be the one thing I would say. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think with just the rise of maybe popular media like a Shark Tank or something, it seems like the only way to build a great business is VC backed.
I know, go pitch your company, right? And I just think oh my gosh, I have lots of thoughts around the whole pitch process. So, and I know that founders want to go on shows like Dragon's Den, but I just don't know if that's a good idea, to be honest. I think it's probably a great experience, but I wouldn't put all your hope into a process like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get more insight into that about the pitch process. what's maybe something that you would recommend an entrepreneur looking to scale or grow their business?
Yeah, I think first off, taking money into your company means it's no longer your company alone. So you're giving up equity in your business, or you're getting a loan or whatever. Now somebody else is in your business. And so I think that's a really important thing to note. Like, you don't just go out and raise money and then off you go. Like, you now have invested stakeholders that are going to want to know how the business is doing. If it's not doing very well, they're going to be in your kitchen and they're going to be like, we got to turn this around. So, be really, really, just think about that carefully about bringing in outside money, because it's not all that it's made out to be. And maybe your company doesn't actually need that type of financing. Maybe you need a loan instead of an equity partner. And so, just consider what your options are. There's some companies that have built massive companies on customer revenue only. And I always say customer revenue is the best revenue, because you've got the market validation that you have a great idea. And, venture can always accelerate that, but maybe that's not necessarily something that you want to do. So I find like the whole pitch thing, again, it's just like over glorified, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to go pitch, somebody for 10 minutes and I'm going to go raise money and then I'm going to go build my company. And I'm like, it is not like that. And be prepared to get so many no's, like so many, unless, you're probably, a 25-year-old white man in Silicon Valley, and you've got a great idea and you're really firmly implanted in that community, and you probably will have a good chance of raising money. But I think, for those of us that haven't largely participated in that ecosystem before, I think it's really, really challenging. And we know the statistics, right? And that's why we founded the 51. Like 2.2% of all venture funding globally went to women last year.
Wow. And you guys make up the 51%. So that's big discrepancy there.
Exactly, right. And that's just women, right? So then if we think about the demographics behind that, right? There's white women, Black women, Indigenous women, right? Women of color, women from the LGBTQ community. Like, just think about the statistics that are behind that 2.2%. And we don't even have some of that data because it's not being tracked. And so that's why we exist, is to try to change that number. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your very succinct question.
No, I love that. I mean, what could somebody do to help push that vision forward? Like myself, I'd love to see more diversity in funding, or diverse entrepreneurs in the future. How could somebody help shepherd that cause?
Yeah, I think, become an investor, start activating your capital, right? And there's different ways to do that. So yes, right now the 51 only accepts capital from accredited investors. That's very exclusive. We get that, and we're going to change it. But there's also platforms like Front Funder here in Canada, which enable you to invest in entrepreneurs, and you don't have to be an accredited investor. And so you can go onto their platform, you can see what the entrepreneurs are raising money for. You can invest in the coffee shop that's down your street if you wanted to. So I think, if we want to see the things in the world that we want to see, we need to be part of making them happen. And so it could be through our time, right? So we could be champions supporting an entrepreneur through our time, coaching, mentoring, opening doors, helping them with their company, or it could be through our capital. And so, if we really, we always say at the 51, we're investing in the world that we want to see. And so that's what I would say. And invest doesn't mean just your capital, it means your time too.
I love that. That's actually the impetus of this podcast, not only just to share awesome stories like yourself, but also put forward diverse entrepreneurs and their stories and have them get some of that spotlight, if you will. So
yeah,
I love that mission. Looking more in our backyard, Calgary, how has maybe Calgary changed from when you first started to today?
So much. It's changed so much. I think I joined my first technology company in '89. And there wasn't that many technology companies, but I think I kind of stumbled into it because I was young and I was hungry and I wanted to work my ass off and I wanted to learn, and desktop computing was just coming to be, and so it was a great time to get into technology. Just like we have so many other phases since then that have been great times to get into technology. But I don't even think Calgary even knew what a technology company was or a software company was at that point in time. So there was, I don't know how many software technology companies there would have been in Calgary at that point in time. Probably more than I knew, but it was a very, very small community. Because we've just been so dominated by an oil and gas industry, I think much of the technology that appeared in our city was related to that industry, which made sense. And I think about the company that I was with in the 1990s. A big part of our success, I believe, was that we had technology that we could sell to any oil and gas company. And you think about how many oil and gas companies were in downtown Calgary in the 90s. We could literally go building to building, company to company, and we could basically sell to the whole sector in Canada in that city. And then we said, okay, well, what's the next market that we want to go after? And I think it was Houston. I think that was the next market that we went after. And so we went to Houston. And again, it was a bit of a hotbed for that, right? It was like all of the energy companies were there, so we could sell to all of them. Now I don't know where I'm really going with this, but I think Calgary had a tech scene that was largely based on that sector. And now today there's a technology scene that's innovating in kind of any sector you can imagine, right? Like we've got like a bit of a fintech hub in Calgary now, which is super cool. And health tech. The University of Calgary and SAIT and Mount Royal have all really stepped up to make sure that, they have an ecosystem that can take, these scientists and their ideas and help them bring to market. So it's a fantastic ecosystem, and it's just changed so much. And I don't know if you saw, there was an article on BetaKit that came out not last week, but the week before. And last year it was a record-breaking year for capital coming into the city for technology. Record-breaking venture capital year. And so I think the money is coming into the city and the innovation is here. So I think it's a great time to be in Calgary in tech.
It's what a time to be alive.
Yeah,
in Calgary
exactly,
here, yeah.
right? Not in COVID, but it's a great time.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any, earlier you mentioned you're a big traveler. Is there anywhere in particular you're looking to maybe get outside of Calgary, or maybe once COVID's done?
Yeah, Italy. That's like the first one on my list. I love the country. And so I'm actually headed there at the end of March. So I'm going to go hiking for a week in the south of Italy.
Well, make sure you drink some fine wine while you're at
I
that.
will.
So.
I will. No worries.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, you don't have to arm wrestle me on that one.
I love that. Well, I only have a couple more questions here for you, Shelley. One thing I want to know, I always ask guests, is that what's maybe one thing that you're really curious about right now that maybe we haven't touched on in the interview so far?
Yeah, crypto, or now I guess it's been rebranded to Web3. I'm not very well versed in all of that. So that's kind of like my next thing that I want to dive into, is really try to understand what is the opportunity there? Again, from a woman's perspective. So, we're not really participating in that crypto space right now. There's some really cool communities that are starting for women in crypto or Web3. And so yeah, that's kind of like my next area of curiosity.
Web3, that's an exciting technology coming through. So it's going to be a fun next 10, 15 years, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
What's maybe one thing that you never get asked that you wish you would be asked?
Mm, I don't know. It's a hard question. I was thinking about it earlier, and it's like, um,
Or maybe what's something that you're proud of that we haven't talked about so far in the interview that you wish you could share more?
yeah, I think, yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I just think like 51 is like my first love right now. I just think like if there's an opportunity for people to get activated, like we have men and women in the community, and it's fantastic. And so, I think that's what I'm really proud of right now is what's possible. We're just at the start, and we have a big ambition. We want to activate 2.5 billion in women-led capital by 2030. That is our BHAG. That's what we're going for. And so it's going to take more teammates. It's going to take more capital. It's going to take more entrepreneurship, more investors. We have to get really well versed in this opportunity. So, education, confidence, curiosity. So I think that's what I'm really, really excited about right now is just what that journey is going to be. And we're just getting going.
I love that. And if somebody wants to help support that vision, where can people connect with you online to talk more or push that vision forward?
Well, go to the51.com. That's our website. You can become a financial feminist for $51 a year, $51 a year. And it's a really cool community. And we just all kind of hang out and learn all things finance, learn about finance, learn about money. We just had a session a couple of weeks ago, and it was about budgeting, a different way to look at budgeting, like personal budgeting. We're doing another event this month, and it's about how can women do a better job at negotiating their value in the job that they have. Next month, we're going to do crypto and coffee. And so it's a really cool community. And then, yes, if you're an entrepreneur, get in touch with us. Or if you're an accredited investor and you want to invest, we'd love to hear from you. But we're just saying, follow us on social media, come out to our events, get activated, and everyone is welcome in the 51.
I love that. And I'll put all those great links in the show notes so people can go there and check you guys out. Again, I really appreciate your time, Shelley. It's been wonderful talking to you. I really love the vision and mission like we talked about. And yeah, I just want to support and can't wait to share this interview with my listeners.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was great to hang out with you.
Absolutely. And I love to end the interview with one question. It's a leadership podcast. So my last question to you, Shelley, is what does being a leader or leadership mean to you?
Being a role model. Like, don't ask people to go on a journey with you unless you are willing to do all aspects of that journey. So I don't look at leadership as hierarchy. I look at leadership as a galvanizing, inspiring initiative that that you can get people to follow you. But there's no hierarchy associated with it. So that's what I would say. Hi, I'm Shelley Kuipers, and you're listening to Joe Momo Presents.
Thanks again for watching the Joe Momo Presents podcast. For more episodes, check out joemomo.com/podcasts. All right, see you next time.